Getting betrayed is one of the worst feelings because it's a very specific pain that you can only feel when you're fully trusting and your heart is wide open. And that kind of pain can get you to never want to trust or open up ever again. But there's a cost to that. And I got to feel what that cost is, not just in relationship, but also growing up where there was heavy drinking in my family. And because of it, I carried this constant anger and resentment. But I got to the point where I wasn't willing to keep paying that price of that resentment anymore. So in this video, I'm going to help you see the ways that resentment shows up that you may not be aware of and help you in letting go of that anger and that resentment and to help you be able to trust yourself so that you can feel safe in opening up again. So sit back and enjoy. What's up? What's up? Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, I'm Mike, and I'm glad that you're here. Now, in order to be able to let go of the anger and the resentment and the pain that's tied to it, we have to see what it's costing us. Because right now, without realizing it, we see it as a benefit, that there's a benefit to having this anger and this resentment. And in seeing what it's costing us, then it'll stop making sense to keep holding on to it. So when it comes to resentment, it's very sneaky because what it does is it gets us to look at life through a lens of pain that we have to defend ourselves from. Because what it does is it hijacks our RAS, our reticular activating system. And that feeling that comes from that resentment and that anger activates our mind in a way where we start looking for things that feel just like that feeling. So when it comes to the RAS, you want to see it like, let's say you buy a yellow Jeep. And now when you bring that yellow Jeep home, all of a sudden, everybody has a yellow Jeep too. And you're like, what the hell? Like I got yellow specifically to be the only one that had it. And now everyone has it. Like, but what's happening is you didn't notice the yellow Jeeps before because it wasn't something that you were paying attention to. Now that you have it, now your mind starts scanning for it, and now you see yellow Jeeps everywhere. And that happens with everything, but especially with feelings. And this is why you start to see people who have like a specific type when it comes to relationship. And the thing is, they're drawn to not so much how the person looks, they're drawn to how they feel. Because there's a feeling of a familiar pain that they can't survive without realizing it. And they would say that they want a relationship where, let's say they got betrayed in the past, and because of what happened, they're wanting a more loving relationship. They're wanting to be able to trust and be completely open-hearted, feel safe. But the thing is, that actually feels way more scarier than going into the same familiar kind of situation that they know they can't survive in the past. Because in their mind, right, in seeing life through the lens of that resentment, of that pain, there's that anticipation that at some point this might go left and I might get betrayed again. But I know that it would get my heart to only open up to this point, and I could survive that kind of pain. But if they were to receive the love that they actually crave, that means it's going to get into their heart so much deeper. It's going to penetrate their heart deeper to where they don't know if they can survive that kind of pain. And that's the little self-sabotage ways that, I was going to say self-sabotagey ways that the resentment kind of starts to hold us back. So a perfect example for this is there was a client of mine and they were married and they went through a divorce, they had kids, and during the process of the divorce, they had to pay child support. So they started to feel this anger, this resentment, not only from the betrayal of the divorce, because what caused the divorce was their wife cheated on them. And that already had them like on the defense. And then now they have to pay child support to somebody that betrayed them. So their minds started to look for ways of how can we limit that? Because they were thinking about selling their house. And instead of doing so, they thought, let me wait until the divorce process is done. Then I'll sell the house because at least now she won't get more out of me. And it seems logical. But what ended up happening is as time was passing by, they needed to sacrifice things in order to start making ends meet. And they still weren't willing to find more ways of making money because they didn't want to pay more to their wife. Again, logical, makes sense for how they're looking at the situation. But more and more, they're having to sacrifice things. More and more, their life is getting harder. So I got them to just be aware of, hey, in trying to spite this person and trying to withhold them getting more, you're actually doing the same thing to yourself because now you're having less. And now you're the one that's having to deal with what comes from the sacrifice. And you're the one that's actually struggling in this moment because, he had to deal with some things with the kids and you got to see that she was actually doing well. You got to hear from the kids that she's going on vacations. And in hearing these things, it only fueled the way that he was looking out at life in this moment that had to do with her of, okay, she's going on these vacations with my money. So even more so, I want to double down and make sure she doesn't get a penny more from me because she's over here living her life and now I'm over here like struggling and going through it. But again, in order for that not to happen, that means he's not making more. So the resentment caused him to start to sabotage his own finances. Because in his mind, if he's making less, and this is all subconscious, if he's making less, she's getting less. If he really doesn't make anything, she's definitely not getting anything. So he thinks he's winning. He thinks like, oh, this is like satisfying and gratifying to not give her more because after what she's done to me, I feel like she shouldn't be getting anything. But it started to make his life so much harder. And I got him to be aware of this and got him to see, hey, you're holding yourself back more than anything. If she gets more money, it would have to be as a result of you having more money. It can't happen any other way. Like, yes, she's not getting anything because you're not getting anything, but the opposite of that is true too. So in seeing how resentment gets us to make decisions out of pain, then we can see the ways that we're kind of getting possessed by this pain, right? Which gets us to acknowledge that that resentment is within us and that anger is within us too. Because that could be tough to admit at times. And the reason for that is in feeling that betrayal, right? Having gone through that experience of being betrayed or abandoned by somebody that we really cared about, we were really trusting and open to, we start to villainize that person. And by nature of the role, if they're the villains, they're the ones that caused the pain, then that means we were the innocent ones that experienced the pain. We were the innocent ones that got hurt. And just notice how that word feels, that you were the innocent one. Because it's very different than hearing the word victim. Because victim could have this charge to it. It could bring the anger out even more. And that's what happened to the client that went through the divorce. They actually had their brother tell them as they were kind of like venting out to their brother responded saying, "You're always victimizing yourself." And it triggered something within them. piss them off, honestly. And the reason for that is when we go through a painful experience, it like being called a victim feels like it doesn't justify the strength, and it doesn't see the strength that it took to go through that pain, to deal with that pain. So that anger is, no, I'm not a victim. Like I got myself to this point. Yeah, things aren't exactly where I want them to be, but you don't know what I've been through. And that's what you hear people say a lot is you don't know what I've been through. And what they're saying is the pain I had to endure, the pain I had to go through, and most likely the pain I'm still carrying. So hearing that you're being called a victim, it's almost like a spit in your face to everything you had to go through. Because physical pain is one thing, but emotional pain, especially that is able to even like penetrate your heart, that's a whole different kind of pain. And it takes a whole other level of strength to go through. That's why people take the time to like be with themselves and recollect. So that's why instead of saying victim, I just like to open the door and get you to see it as you are innocent. And what that does is it starts to put the guard down. It's like, yeah, I did feel innocent in this situation. But the tricky thing is, again, there's roles. So if you're innocent, that means they're the ones that are not. And it gets us to not see the anger and the resentment because those are the qualities that a villain would have, right? Usually when you see movies, Disney movies, any kind of movies, there's always the villain that is carrying this resentment from this pain that they haven't been able to let go of. And that's usually the motive as to why they do all these horrible things. So when we hear resentment and anger, they're often labeled as bad qualities. And we're like, I don't want to be seen as that kind of person. I'm a good person. This whole situation I didn't want to happen. I was the one that was betrayed. I was the one that this happened to. So yeah, I'm the innocent one. But you get to see resentment, it's not you. And anger is not you. It's an emotion as a human being you have the ability to feel. As humans, we have so many ranges of emotions, and resentment is one of them, and we all feel it at some point. Throughout life, we experience all the ranges of emotions that there's, possible to feel. And resentment is just that. It's just a feeling of an emotion of this sense of wrongdoing and wishing and like being so mad that it happened and thinking that I will never let this go so it never happens again. But you get to see what comes at the cost of that. And being able to see the anger and resentment within you, now you're able to let it go because you can't let go of something that you're not willing to look at or even acknowledge or give any attention to. And the reason for that is because there's a pain behind it, a very specific kind of like deep sadness that needs to be grieved. And that's what comes up when we hear the word victim, right? Where there's a pain there that we feel we have to protect in a way, and that anger kind of lashes out to protect the pain. And that's what the resentment is doing too. So, in acknowledging that you have that resentment and anger within you, now you're starting to approach the pain and the sadness that's behind it. Because even for me, in my personal example with growing up with, drinking in my family, somebody were to tell me that I was a victim, I would want to punch you in the face at the time, right? Which is why fighting made sense to me. And the reason for that is because that pain of seeing my mother go through that and drinking heavily and seeing my aunts go through that too, it's like it took a lot to go through that and it took a lot of strength to deal with that, but it also took a lot of strength to act like the pain wasn't there. And the anger that comes up from hearing the word victim can distract us from it distracted me from looking at the pain behind it. Whereas in saying, okay, even when I would hear the word victim, it's like, okay, like I was innocent in the situation. Now there's no charge. And because the anger and the resentment is a little more relaxed, now I can see and feel the pain and the sadness that was there, that I was actually feeling the whole time. And that's what needs to be grieved. The pain behind the anger and the resentment is what's asking for your attention so it can pass through you, that sorrow. And it's not so much grieving what happened, because, yeah, there's some pain there, but mainly what you're grieving is what you wanted to happen. And you may not have been ready to sit with that yet. Maybe when the situation happened at first, even like with my client, for example, it may have been so much to just process in the moment that you just didn't have the space, the mental space to just slow down and be with it. It's just so much all at once. But when you feel that anger come up and that resentment, you can feel that little bit of pain knocking on the door right behind it. It's just asking you to be with it, not needing to do anything special, not needing to prove that you're past it and you're ready to get into another relationship. You have space right now. You have space between either it may have been a working situation, a relationship, or even like a similar situation like mine with family, where in this moment, there's this pocket where you have the space and the time to be with you and be with how you're feeling about what happened, but what you wanted to happen. Because that's the thing that is asking to be grieved. The future that you envisioned, the future that you saw, the future that your heart was completely open towards, that you were completely trusting the other person was on board with you in fulfilling. That is what gets to be let go. It actually helps you connect deeper with yourself in a way that can't ever be replaced. And this is what actually gets you to start to trust again, what gets you to be able to love and open up again. Because you get to realize, as you were looking through the lens of pain before, it's the feeling that you trusted in somebody and they betrayed your trust. But if you like, whenever you look back, it's always hindsight's always 2020. So looking back, there's always signs. We always look back and we start to see the signs of, oh, if I really pay attention, I could see how this was coming. Even the unexpected things, there's little signs, little moments where either you felt something, thought something, you didn't act on it, you didn't say anything, and either you chose to ignore it, whatever happened. But in looking back on the signs, it's realizing, yeah, yeah, I could see how I did it, how I ignored myself. I could see how I was doing these little betrayals, how I was abandoning myself in all these little ways. And in being able to see that, not like you did anything wrong, not that you did anything bad, but that this is helping you to be able to see how to trust again. To remember that it's not so much you're trusting somebody else in the future, it's that you're trusting yourself because you have this space. It's not like you're going right into another relationship right now. It's not like the opportunity immediately happens. There's always this gap between what happened and going into the version of it that you want. Like my client, it's not like he's getting married, you know, the week after the divorce. There's some time. There's some time before it happens. And in that time, life gives you the opportunities to do these little trust building exercises with yourself. Because throughout the day, there's all these little moments where you get to see, are you going to listen to yourself? Are you going to trust yourself? You either get a little nudge or you hear something, get a feeling about something. Do you trust yourself to do it and follow through? Do you trust yourself to say no in this situation, say yes in this situation? There's always these constant little ways of rebuilding that trust, which is why you see people when they go through a separation, they have their whole glow up, right? And in the process of the glow up is those little trust building exercises. Oh, I trust myself to go to the gym, even when I don't feel like it. I trust myself to stick to a diet because I really want to take care of myself. I trust myself to, and again, all those little trust building exercises. Now, when the opportunity presents itself again for the thing that you want, now you have something to share. Now you have trust to share. And you have that open hearted love to share. Because you could only give what you already have. And that's why, like, that thought of, I'm never going to trust again doesn't feel good. Because you can't trust, and it's why it's hard to trust. You can't trust somebody if you're not able to trust yourself. But when you trust yourself, it's very easy to trust other people because you have it to give and you're not relying on them with your trust anymore. You know that trust is just with you. So if they're acting according like to what you would like to happen, if they're in alignment with how you would want a relationship to be, cool. Like you trust yourself to stay in a situation like that. And if something happens that you're not a fan of, you're like, hey, this is not really what I want in a relationship. Do you trust yourself to communicate that? Not even go to the extreme of like, all right, I'm going to cut it off and go. Do you trust yourself to communicate it? And then you can see what happens. And if they respect it and make the changes, cool. And if not, do you trust yourself when that time comes, you'll know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it? That's really all you're asking yourself of. Because when you trust yourself in that way, you have no problem being completely open-hearted. Doesn't matter who's around you, because you trust yourself to not protect your heart. Because even listen to the word protect. In order to protect something, you have to defend against something. So do you just simply trust yourself with your heart? And in saying yes, then there's no fear in opening it up again and allowing love in and allowing that part of you to be seen. Because now it doesn't matter what anybody else does. You trust you. And from there, you see your value, your worth. You remember all these things about you that were already there, but just couldn't be seen through the lens of the pain, of the anger, and the resentment. Not that there was anything wrong with it. They were just calling for your attention of something that was asking to be felt, which was the sadness and the pain, the grief, the sorrow, all to give you the permission to let go of pain. And now in this way, you have this appreciation for the resentment and the anger. It all works together. It all has a purpose, all for your benefit. So it's not like you were doing anything wrong. You never are. You're doing awesome. So let me know what you got from this episode. Let me know, how does it feel now in giving yourself the permission to grieve and feel and be angry and let the emotions go so you can feel the pain behind it. How much lighter do you feel now? How much more trusting of yourself and of life do you feel now? Enjoy that feeling, but tell me how it feels. I almost got this so close. I don't know if you saw me jump back for a second. But with that being said, be sure to like, share, subscribe. I'm wishing you an amazing day. If it's nighttime by you, I'm wishing you an amazing night. And I will catch you later.